For the first time since March, Bitcoin has achieved a higher high on the chart. We had a very discernible high here in August, and now September, we just touched a new high. And what does this really mean? Because, well, Bitcoin is currently chopping above and below it, right? If you look at the 4-hour chart, you can see that we had a touch of a new high here, a new local high. Now we are rejecting a little bit, sort of just gonna probably chop in this range before possible continuation. You know, it doesn't seem like much. It's just a little wick above the high, but it indicates that simply demand is outweighing supply. The bears are failing to hold Bitcoin down another lower high. They already failed. We hit a higher high. As we discussed in the last video, the 128-day SMA has played a big role in past cycles, and we were below it for a while here, but you can see over the past many days, we've been wicking into it for support, and the bulls held that moving average. That was the support line, and now we've pushed up, broken out, as we were saying in yesterday's video. Still a lot of work to do, but it is a positive sign. So the 128-day SMA is another representation of the 21-week SMA. I'm sure you guys have heard of that one. People talk about it all the time. It's a very key player in a lot of our uptrends and downtrends throughout Bitcoin history. And the last time we were in a lull here in 2023, when we closed above the 21-week SMA, that's when our run began. You can see that right now we are currently in the week. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 days left. If we close this weekly above the 21-week, likely it means we're going to start pushing into even higher highs. Obviously, there is a lot of resistance in that range, so we might see some chop along this level before actually getting the break into new all-time highs. And why am I talking about new all-time highs? Well, the S&P 500 is at a new all-time high. It actually gapped up today. It is up 0.4% on the day. Yes, there is a red candle today, but that is because the S&P 500 gapped up, came back down, filled this gap with a dip down, and that we've bounced up after filling this gap. And it looks like we want more continuation for the S&P. And S&P all-time highs always precede Bitcoin all-time highs. There's never been a new Bitcoin all-time high without the S&P doing it first. So it's looking good, guys. I mean, everything seems to be lining up above the 21-week, above the 128-day. Like I keep saying, we are much closer to the all-time high than most people think. From current prices to the wick high of the all-time high, that's less than 14% away. We've seen many 10% daily candles for Bitcoin. If you just look at some of these past candles, we've seen many of these candles. This one was 22% up. The candles below that, this one was 14% up. So if one of these candles show up on the Bitcoin chart right now, that is new all-time highs. So it's much closer than you think. Now, moving on to the total three, this is the altcoin market cap. A lot of you guys clearly hold altcoins because a lot of you guys are getting really excited now. And Bitcoin's been near the all-time high for quite a while, so that tells me a lot of people are holding altcoins, quite obviously, right? And so the altcoin market cap has been consolidating for the entire year. From the beginning of 2024, the altcoins had a huge run into March, gave up all of their gains, and now have started to recover. The altcoin market cap is beginning to break above resistance. And this is exactly what we were talking about in previous videos. If you remember, we were looking at the past cycle and how the current setup is really no different than the setup that we had in the last cycle. High, lower high, accumulation range, break resistance, consolidate. 10 weeks later, we're breaking the lower high. This cycle, we had a high, lower high, accumulation range, breakout, consolidate, and in theory, if we're going to repeat something similar, around 10 weeks from now, we're going to be breaking the lower high, which means a lot of altcoins have tremendous growth coming from now into November. So Q4 is looking solid for the altcoins and for Bitcoin for that matter. And if we do see that happen, if we do start to see the total three come up quickly in the next many weeks, well, that means that Bitcoin dominance is likely going to see a tumble. And that is what we'd also discussed recently. This is the multi-year resistance for Bitcoin dominance. We're coming up, actually we're on it, we were above it briefly. We also discussed that we could see a fake out above the resistance before alt season kicking in. From 2017, our resistance line marks up on the 2020-2021 top for Bitcoin dominance to where we are right now. It's exactly where we are, right in this region. So if the Bitcoin dominance chart begins to fall below this trend line, then that would be a pretty clear signal that we're looking for lower highs in Bitcoin dominance, and then alt season begins, just like every other cycle. You know, this cycle is no different than previous cycles. There are slight variations. It's not exactly the same, but the timing is pretty much the same. We're not late, we're actually on schedule. 2016, the Bitcoin halving took place and Bitcoin dominance began to break down about 35 weeks later. Here we had the third halving. Bitcoin dominance began to break down, you could say, around 45 weeks later. And the current cycle that we're in, from the halving to where we are now, we're about 24, 25 weeks in. 10 more weeks, Bitcoin dominance should be coming down, which means we're on time, we're on schedule. Bitcoin's breaking the all-time high as it should be, when it should be. You know, assuming that it will break the all-time high, Bitcoin is nearing the all-time high right when it should. And the total three, the altcoins, are breaking their consolidation right when they should. Same exact timing, guys. There's nothing really different here in terms of timing. Slightly different performance for some of the coins. Lower caps were suffering because of high interest rates and many other reasons. The SEC coming down on a lot of projects and exchanges. Some of the lower cap coins didn't do so well recently. But as you guys saw in the news, the SEC is getting their butt handed to them. It's pretty clear that there's a lot of incompetence in the SEC, and it's looking favorable for crypto as both presidential candidates are at least saying that they're pro-crypto and pro-blockchain. So exciting times ahead. We're starting to see some structural changes here for the Bitcoin price. And guys, now is the time to join Patreon. We're not going to be this cheap forever. Once we break the all-time high, retail is going to flood back in, and we're going to have limited spots, higher prices once that happens. So you want to get in now early. Before that happens, you can lock in these prices. You can lock in an annual discount as well, very cheap. You can keep that as long as you want. If you want to come in, see some of the altcoin picks, trades, or if you want to join our community and be a part of our morning Discord voice chats where you can talk to me directly in the morning when the market opens, definitely join today, guys. The opportunity is here. Better off being ahead of the other retail traders that are going to step in once this market begins to kick off once again. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video.